So I'm going to give you an overview of the UKFin programme today. So UKFin, this is a graphic that we had drawn up for our launch event. UKFin is funded by the Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council. We got 2.5 million of funding from EPSRC, and $1 million of that is earmarked for our funding programme, which is really the main topic of today's presentation. But we also have funding to run a whole series of events that bring people working in fintech, that bring academics working in fintech together with industry professionals. So the overarching aim of the UKFin is to bridge the gap between academic researchers in fintech and industry. And by industry, that includes charities, regulator, government organisations, as well as companies, large and small companies. So we have a very broad definition of industry. So that's what we are there to do. So we have the funding stream, we have a series of events, and then we'll also be disseminating our findings. So that's an overview graphic of what we do. Project team. So from left to right, we have Will Nottenbelt, who is from Imperial College London. There's myself, you can see there in the picture. Karen Elliott, whom I know you met at a recent event in Glasgow. She is based at the University of Birmingham. And then at the back there, we have Hassan Naveed. He's our research assistant based, he's employed by university, but he's also finishing up a PhD at Strathclyde. John Vines, who's at the University of Edinburgh. Maggie Chen, Cardiff University. Ard van Moorsel, who is the overall lead for the UKFin project. He's head of school in computer science at Birmingham, and then Helen Orpin is our project officer. So that's who we are. We are based across the UK. We also have close links with the academic community in Northern Ireland, and we have one of the academics there on our advisory board. So we aim to have a very broad geographical reach. So as I mentioned already, the UKFin network goals are to bridge the gap between a £2.5 million programme aimed at tackling these wicked complex problems, bringing together academics with industry to focus on problems. Wicked problems, that's wicked problems are problems which can't really be solved, they can only be managed. So they're very complex problems, and as soon as you think you've solved a problem, then another aspect to it pops up. But by bringing together the latest academic expertise with these complex real-world challenges, we hope to enable industry to benefit more from the latest thinking in academic research. So what are we doing? The funding calls I've already mentioned. Co-design workshops, we've delivered a few of those. We had our launch event at Birmingham earlier this year, where we had a roundtable session to get academics and industry folk together to talk about some of the challenges that face fintech and to start thinking about how they might be addressed and how they might work together to address them. We have our $1 million of funding to disperse. We have network events. So again, it's an evolving programme of events. We have a roadshow. So we were in Scotland a couple of weeks ago. We're out in Northern Ireland and we're out in Wales before the end of the calendar year. And then we'll be having a think about 2024 and what we want to do. But we will definitely be having an annual event every year in June. That's the main event for disseminating our findings. And we have funding to really be quite agile in our network events. And so we need to be all the time listening and hearing from what people want and then responding to that with what we deliver. We'll have a toolkit. So this will be an online toolkit that will enable all of the fintech community, academic researchers and industry to access the outcomes of the network. And then we will be pulling together a research strategy. So this will be a national research strategy, aiming really to articulate what the sort of state of the nation for fintech research in the UK, together with, and marrying that together with what the real life challenges are. So hopefully that strategy will drive both government research investment and also to a certain extent government support. So that's what the network sets out to do. These area examples of the challenges that exist in fintech came from when the academic team put the funding application for UKFin together. They had to have a think about what the challenges were, and this was informed from their own attendance at academic conferences and their own research. So these areas are the sort of starting point, if you like, for thinking about what the wicked problems that face UK fintech industry are. They're the starting point, but they are very much open for discussion, for refinement. That's the purpose of the roundtable events that we're doing at the moment, where we're going out and talking to people across the UK, is really to get a sense of what the actual priorities are. So at the moment, we're not setting, there is also no expectation. So we're really talking about funding today. There is no expectation that anyone applying for funding, that it has to be addressing one of these challenges. This is really just giving a list of challenges to get people started. There's been a lot of interest in financial inclusion, and part of what the directors will be doing as we go forward is reflecting back on these challenges and from what they themselves are picking up through their academic work. If we feel there are areas where we're not necessarily getting interest, but we know there are wicked challenges out there, then that's something that we will seek to address. So moving on then to talk specifically about the funding. There are 5 streams for project funding: agile, pilot, feasibility, impact, and education. The first 3 of those are essentially research streams, and then impact and education. Those are impact, as it says, if you've actually developed something and you're ready to take it out into the real world. Impact could apply, and education is about developing talent pipeline. So there is no, these are presented broadly in order. So agile is a sort of starting point. If you want to quickly get money to explore for an early stage research idea, then it would be agile, would be for you. But it isn't, anyone can apply for any of these funding pots. So someone could apply for agile, then pilot, then feasibility, then impact. So education is a different purpose. It's more about expanding the talent pipeline. So that kind of sits by itself. But equally, somebody could come in and just apply for impact funding, having not had any of the agile or pilot. So you can come in at any point. So the research projects, the agile is a rapid funding for bold and ambitious exploratory projects. So up to 4 months of funding and up to £10,000. That's the total cost. We would fund 80% of that. So agile has no deadline. You can apply for agile at any time. It's open already. We've already made 1 agile award, so you can apply at any time for agile funding. And that's really if you have a very early stage idea and you just want to explore if there's something in it, then agile funding would be the one. Then we have pilot and feasibility. So those 2 are pilot and feasibility are really at a more advanced stage of research, and pilot is for high risk, high reward research that addresses wicked technology problems, up to 4 months and 20k. And feasibility is the same, except that for feasibility there needs to be a multidisciplinary aspect to it. And in terms of the difference between the 2, pilot could be multidisciplinary. In terms of the difference between the 2, you don't need to worry too much about the difference between pilot and feasibility. because when we receive applications, there will be a bit of triage. So if you've applied for feasibility and the team think doesn't quite have that the right level of ambition for feasibility, they could invite you to reapply for pilot or vice versa. So you don't need to worry too much about the difference, but it is worth noting feasibility needs to have a multidisciplinary team, whereas that's not required for pilot. So impact projects, these are about translating research into real life benefits, for example, to influence policy or to initiate commercialization. They can follow on from pilot or feasibility, but they don't have to. So you could come straight in and apply for an impact project, up to 6 months duration and up to 15K of directly incurred costs. And then the education projects, so these are this is a different kind of stream to the other four, which are really about research and enabling that research to have a real life benefit. The education projects are about developing the talent pipeline in fintech, because that is also a challenge for UK fintech. And there are examples there. It could be continuing professional development, lifelong learning, mass online courses, higher education curriculum and education enhancement, and supporting teaching of fintech in schools. But those are only examples. The one thing it is worth noting about the education stream is that education projects, we would fund a kind of pilot of an education project. So if we take the HE curriculum and education enhancement, that could be funded to look at that at one university, but we would then expect the findings of that to be openly available so that all universities across the UK could benefit from what was found. So this is really about developing the talent pipeline more broadly rather than looking at particular organisations and institutions. So that's an overview of the funding streams. Who can apply for our funding? So all projects must include at least one HEI or research organisation and at least one non-HEI partner. So that could be a company, charity, trade body, regulator, government body. It doesn't have to be a business, but it does need to be an organisation that isn't higher education. And the research agenda should be oriented around key priorities of the non-HEI partners. So that is very important from the funder perspective, from an engineering physical sciences research council perspective. They want everything we fund to be addressing real life challenges. So that's why we have to orientate around the key priorities of the non-HEI partner rather than around academic priorities. We're very much looking to fund projects that address real world challenges. And each non-HEI partner should provide a letter of support evidencing the senior commitment to the project and alignment with partner strategic priorities. So that's the only stipulation we have for the non-HEI partner. There's two stipulations: one, that they are not an academic organisation, and two, that the project that's being proposed aligns with their strategic priorities and really addresses a complex real world problem that they've been grappling with and that they need some academic expertise to help them with. So in terms of why get involved, so for researchers, they'll have the opportunity to work on real world applications and to see their research deliver some tangible benefits in the world beyond higher education, and potentially learn some new skills and research methods. And non-HEI partners get access to expertise. They gain access to funding for activities and hopefully sharpen their competitive advantage and reduce the risk of investing in research, because they're getting the funding to invest in the research, which might or might not ultimately help them. So that can be a barrier for industry to invest in research because of the uncertain nature of the research process. So what are the IP aspects? What are the terms for collaboration? So very broadly speaking, how this is arranged is that the higher education partner has the right to use the results for academic purposes. So obviously that means to publish academic papers, and it means to include the findings in impact case studies for the ref, and the non-HDI collaborator has the right to use the results owned by the institution. Sorry, I've got that. The collaborator has the right to use those results in their industry. So that's broadly the basis for the terms of collaboration, and there will be a funding offer letter that sets this out in more detail. The network is saying that collaboration agreement or funding offer is not negotiable. And this is because we all know this. There is an awful lot of time and energy that gets taken up once research funding is given to academic and non-academic collaborations, with negotiating contracts that doesn't necessarily add value. So we've set out the terms in a way that we hope is both clear, relatively simple and plainly, and then we ask everybody just to sign up to those, and we don't spend an awful lot of time going around in circles trying to negotiate things. But again, we have to wait and see how that plays out in practice. The application process is fairly straightforward. It's via a Word document. So all of our application, the details of how to apply is on the UKFin website. Our funding is open. We're open for agile applications at any time. The other 4 streams, there will be 2 deadlines a year, typically one in November and one in April. And the first one is coming up on the 14th of November. And the full information on and the application forms, all of that information is on our website. So what we expect is a Word document, an application form that's, in the sort of typical UKRI fashion, where fundamental to it is a case for support and a justification of how you will use the money. And then there's a resume for research, which is the new UKRI approach that has replaced the CV and list of publications, where we get to hear about the capabilities of the proposed research team, why they're a good fit for each other, why they're a good fit for this project. And then, of course, we need the partner support letter. And those documents get submitted to the UKFin team via our email. So that the process, that's how it's working at the moment. We may look at putting that online, but for the moment, that's how we're doing it with Word documents. So no funding portal. If you want to know more, then you can join our UKFin mailing list. So through that mailing list, we send out newsletters from time to time that pull together updates on what we're doing. We also, as and when we announce new funding deadlines, new funding clinics, we communicate those through our mailing list. I just mentioned funding clinics. So we offer funding clinics not once a week, but once a week when the team is available. So that is so for example, there's a couple of weeks in November where we're out on the road where we won't be doing funding clinics, but most weeks we offer a funding clinic at varying times. We try to do some early in the morning, some in late afternoon, so that everybody gets a chance. You can book onto those clinics via our website, and they are a 15-minute slot, and we ask you to make sure you've read all of our information on our website before you come to the clinic, and to come prepared with questions. And at each clinic, it would be myself and one of the academic directors who's at that clinic. So it gives you a chance to ask your questions to not just of me, but also of one of the academic directors. And you can contact us at any time via our email address. You can also follow us on LinkedIn and on X, as it is now, not Twitter. So that's my whistle-stop tour of the UKFin